Breaking.
Shanquella Robinson, along with one of their attorneys, is speaking tomorrow, nearly 6 months after she died in Mexico. The community and the family, they've been looking for answers and bigger involvement from federal authorities ever since her passing. That announcement, that briefing, it's set for 1:30 tomorrow. WCNC Charlotte will have a crew there. We'll bring you the latest details.
And we're
More breaking news now at noon, just into the newsroom. Federal prosecutors will not bring charges in the death of Shanquella Robinson. That announcement coming just minutes after federal authorities met with Robinson's family at the Charlotte FBI headquarters. In a statement from the U.S. Attorney and the FBI, the Fed said there was not enough evidence to bring charges. Robinson died in October last year while on a trip to Mexico with friends. WBTV reporter Brandon Hamilton is at FBI headquarters. You just heard from him minutes ago. He will be at a news conference with Robinson's family set to start at 1:30 this afternoon. That news conference will stream live across platforms, WBTV's platforms, including our news app and the WBTV Facebook page. We're posting the latest right now. You may have just gotten alerted on your WBTV news app about this story and this breaking news that no charges will be filed. Again, you can continue to follow along the app and us here on air and online for those latest updates.
All right, family. Welcome back to a special edition live stream. As you saw earlier today from this announcement, it's been announced that there are no charges will be brought, no federal charges against the perpetrators of Shanquella Robinson, as the FBI has cited a lack, or the Department of Justice, I should say, cited a lack of evidence in stating that it differs from the autopsy that was found in Mexico. According to Shanquella Robinson's family, who released a statement earlier today, this is coming obviously from the New York Post that I'm reading. They have stated, of course, that they are disappointed in this decision. Through their attorneys, Ben Crump and Sue Ann Robinson, the family stated, while it's discouraging for the loved ones of Shanquella that their own Department of Justice will not be pursuing charges against Shanquella's aggressor, it is our stance that justice is still possible for her death. We hope there is still a chance of justice in Mexico. According to this report, the FBI released a statement, the Department of Justice released a statement with the FBI stating, of the federal prosecutor stating that, as in every case under consideration for federal prosecution, the government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a federal crime was committed. Based on the results of the autopsy, and after a careful deliberation and review of the investigative materials by both U.S. Attorney offices, federal prosecutors informed Ms. Robinson's family that today that the available evidence does not support a federal prosecution. Robinson was found dead in a hotel room in the Mexico resort city in October last year. This happened in Cabo, Mexico. She was vacationing, as you recall, with some friends, and I put that in air marks because the friends that she was with, based off video footage that is purported to be Shanquella, I believe was confirmed, showed her being attacked and assaulted by these same so-called friends. And I have to be careful because, of course, all of this is alleged. None of it has been proven in court. And she was on vacation with six friends, and her death was originally thought to be related to alcohol poisoning. But the autopsy that was conducted by Mexican authorities, they treated this as a femicide, basically a killing of a female by another female. And they stated that Shanquella had actually died, beautiful girl, from neck and back injuries. Her spinal cord was essentially severed. She died of a broken neck. This is a still photo of that video that went viral that showed Shanquella being assaulted by an unknown female assailant, while another person is there videotaping and not even stopping the altercation. Apparently, another video shows Robinson was getting beat by another woman in her hotel room in Cabo. The death certificate letter said Robinson suffered severe spinal cord injury and atlas luxation, or damage to a neck vertebrae. Disturbing video footage from inside Robinson's hotel room later revealed that one of the women she traveled to Mexico with had savagely beaten her inside the room. A person off camera yelled, "At least fight back," while a woman trounced Robinson, according to the viral video. A final autopsy determined Robinson likely died from trauma suffered during the beating about 15 minutes later. An arrest warrant was issued for an unnamed person in Mexico, but no one has ever been arrested in the case. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm as a criminal defense attorney, I always argue for the presumption of innocence because all persons are presumed innocent until proven guilty. And of course, this crime happened in another country. I have to go and say that. And their laws differ from that in the United States. However, let's break down what we are seeing today about the United States authorities. Let me play this video first this was initially when everyone was getting involved into the Shanquella Robinson story when it was going.
Let me just first say our hearts go out to Miss Robinson's family and friends. It is devastating what occurred, and certainly the tragedy is just devastating. And we've been following the news here, but because there's an FBI investigation underway, there's very little that we can say. We got to, as you know, we are very careful about criminal investigations or any investigations that are currently happening through DOJ, in this particular case, FBI. But our hearts go out again, to the families.
But no action results from that, Ms. Pierre. None. You say it's an active investigation, so yet this was back from this video, I believe, 4 months ago, and now here we are, 2023. Nothing has been done. Now, let us address the feds. They have to be able to prove that some type of federal charge had been committed. I understand that. Now, murder, ladies and gentlemen, is not necessarily a federal offense. It is a state charge. Every state practically, which of course, outside of Louisiana, we have the Louisiana Criminal Code. Outside of that, you all have what's called, you've heard of it, the Model Penal Code. That is used in every state. And states still with the Model Penal Code has their regulations on what they determine as a crime or not. So if there were some type of conspiracy to kill Shanquella Robinson, and if they wanted to say, for instance, some type of, obviously I don't think they could do it, even under federal law, there can be, sex trafficking, kidnapping charges could fall under that umbrella. It would be hard, obviously, with this case, because we look at Shanquella, she was vacationing with her friends. Well, let me rephrase that. With who she believed were her friends. Because I don't believe these are real friends. None of them, according to, we know this initially, stayed with Shanquella at the moment of her death, at the time she was injured. They all flew back, and purportedly, they told the parents that she died of alcoholic poisoning, and her body was left in that hotel room for a housekeeper to see. So I look at that and hear that, and that sounds to me like somebody that was trying to hide something, and that's so at least some type of culpability in her death, in my opinion. Now, we go further into that regarding the feds. I think that this is a shame for them to state that they didn't have any evidence and they're looking at the autopsy in which they can't produce a crime. You have evidence that shows that at the bare minimum, Shanquella Robinson was assaulted. Let's start with that by the video. And her body, after she was found dead, was left there by her so called friends, alone. Nobody there to stand with her on the side. And the autopsy report states, the certificate states, that this was a homicide. Why close the case if no one has been arrested? And let's not forget, there was some type of cooperation going on with the California Baja prosecutor's office, the Mexican Baja, which, that area, Bel Sur, that, of course, is right on the California border, Mexico and so forth, right there. That's where she was killed. She was right there. I believe the feds had announced themselves that they were coordinating with this office. Now, Shanquella Robinson's mother, back in December, let's go to the second part. Shanquella Robinson's parents stated that there was no progress going on by the FBI. She stated her mother, Salamandra Robinson, told Good Morning America that I'm just trying to wait for somebody to be arrested. The FBI is not telling anything. Shanquella Robinson's mother, Shanquella Robinson's mother told the UK's Independent on Thursday, more than a month after her daughter died at the swanky Fundadores Beach Club in San Jose del Cabo, that Mexican prosecutors issued an arrest warrant for a suspect in the 25-year-old's death. But of course, those suspects have not been extradited. And even from listening to federal experts, it is very hard sometimes for the United States to extradite another person, yet alone a United States citizen, to a foreign country. And I'm reading this article, there was an attorney who predicted that the U.S. Department of Justice would take over the case from Mexican authorities because remember, they were investigating. But now, that was on March 24th when he did this interview. But now, we're talking about several months later, not even a month later. This was a few weeks ago, and no charges have been filed. My heart only aches more for the Robinson family, for her father, for her mother, because my understanding, I remember her father was talking, this was his only child, and he will not have grandchildren, and yet they don't know fully what happened to their loved one.
Families still searching for answers in Shanquella Robinson's death.
Let's rewind, ladies and gentlemen. This is the article that I'm talking about. This is what the attorney said. So lining that up to what we've heard now from the feds, who have declined to press charges in the wake of her death. Listen to what they say in this interview.
25-year-old Charlotte woman died in October while vacationing in Cabo San Lucas. 5 months later, her family's still pleading for the people responsible to be arrested. Mexican authorities have issued a warrant, but as WCNC Charlotte's Julia Kaufman tells us, handing the suspected killers over isn't that simple.
Shanquella Robinson's case is at a standstill. Her family pushing for the FBI and State Department to make an arrest or hand things over to Mexico.
Mexican authorities have already concluded the investigation. They've said that it was homicide.
The work is done.
The work is done.
Family attorney Ben Crump argues the fastest way to justice may be extraditing the suspects. Attorney Chris Swecker, former head of the FBI Criminal Investigative Division, says it's extremely rare for the U.S. to give a citizen to another country, especially if there are concerns of a corrupted government.
These people are innocent until proven guilty, and we're not. I don't think that we are convinced that they would get the type of due process that they're entitled to, as they would be entitled to in this country.
For suspects to be extradited, Swecker says Mexican investigators would need to come to the U.S. to share their evidence. Then U.S. officials would find the suspects and take them to Mexico. But he doesn't think that'll happen.
I would be very surprised if our Justice Department would be willing to extradite to Mexico. I think they'd much rather try these killers up here.
It's unclear if Mexican and U.S. authorities are working together. Swecker predicts the U.S. will likely take jurisdiction of the case, just not as fast as Shanquella's family would like. The family says they've gotten little to no response from the federal government. Swecker thinks they deserve an update.
Have they asked for the evidence? Have they asked for the investigators in Mexico to come to the U.S.? Are they willing to indict these people in the United States?
Questions Crump hopes to get answered when he expects to meet with the Foreign Relations Committee and White House officials sometime after April 1st. In Charlotte, Julia Kaufman, WCNC Charlotte.
How is that DNC coalition working? So far, since Joe Biden has been president with his Department of Justice, we've never had Emmett Till's killer, kidnapper, indicted. You haven't gotten reparations. And now with Shanquella Robinson's death, the FBI is stating there's no charges that's going to be filed. I'm not surprised by this. Y'all smash up the likes, please. Smash up the likes, hit that share and subscribe button. We got almost, I can't believe we got just less than 10 people here. We have to have more. YouTube screwing with these numbers again. What do y'all think of this? We got new details. Remember, there were documents that were submitted to Joe Biden, to President Biden. According to Ben Crump and Sue Ann Robinson, they sent a letter to Biden and the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken calling for swift diplomatic intervention on the victim's behalf. So they said, per the release in a letter to President Biden and Senate and Secretary Blinken, we clearly stated that one of two things needed to happen: either the United States extradites Shanquella's killers to Mexico, or the United States takes jurisdiction of the case and the killers prosecuted here. The letter states that attorney Sue Ann Robinson went on a fact-finding mission in Mexico. where she met with local authorities to discuss the case. According to witness statements and an account submitted to authorities in Mexico from an employee at the resort, where Robinson stated, they wrote near the witnesses stated that, quote, she seemed to not fit in with others. When I introduced myself, she did not greet me or smile. She was indifferent, nothing to do with the atmosphere of celebration. She was out of place at that party. The letter also identified the murder suspect, according to WCNC TV. Previously, Mexican authorities said they were waiting on the U.S. to extradite an unnamed person who was allegedly involved in a death, but they could only move forward with their investigation. As we know, nobody has been extradited. The United States has not cooperated with this. I'm not happy about this, ladies and gentlemen. No more than you are. And my heart only aches for Shanquella's mother and father. This is the actual death certificate. You see the seal there. That she died of severe spinal cord injury and atlas luxation. It means she had a severed spinal cord. She died of a broken neck. This was not an accident. And these cowards didn't even have the balls to tell him the mother, the family, what happened. Even if they didn't participate, even if they didn't attack her physically, they fled and have been quiet and said nothing since. I can't say that I blame them, because if I was accused of murdering someone, I wouldn't want to say anything either. You know, as an attorney, we always tell our people, especially whether they're guilty or not, we always tell them to remain silent, because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And it's clear from what we see, was it an accidental or a violent death? It says yes. We can't settle, ladies and gentlemen, for I'm sorry. This is unacceptable. And the fact that they have not been extradited tells you that this family is not going to get some type of justice. They may be able to get a civil suit. Now, here's the other part, the third part I was mentioning. I mentioned the family, I mentioned the feds. Mexico might be the only place that they can get that. But again, as I stated, they can't extradite a person without the cooperation of the United States. These are United States citizens. That's why they flew back immediately after she was deceased, the friends. And those feds obviously have to approve the extradition. And it's a likelihood, from what I'm looking at, that it will likely not happen. They can, of course, file a lawsuit. They can, of course, bring some type of lawsuit, which might be another way and to get some type of justice. Of course, the family might look at filing a lawsuit out in They live out in North Carolina, so that might be the only place where they can bring a lawsuit for wrongful death. Of course, there is. Now, here's another thing with that. And let me be clear, because while I'm an attorney, I'm not your attorney. And this is just my opinions based off my legal expertise. It is possible, of course, as you know, with civil matters, which is different from a criminal matter, the burden of proof is much lower. So in a civil matter, there is a preponderance of the evidence versus a criminal matter where I have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime had been committed. I can I don't believe they can do that. While they may not be able to prove, let me restate, necessarily in North Carolina, bring criminal charges that a crime was been committed, the family could institute some type of civil lawsuit of some kind, and perhaps any evidence or information that they have, if they want to bring that forward in a civil suit, that could possibly be used in a court against the alleged perpetrators. And depending on what the jury states, if they believe there was some type of wrongful death action occurred, the only problem would be is would be a place of venue, because remember, the crime allegedly, or the wrongful death allegedly, happened in another country. But if there was some type of premeditation, meaning some type of planning, some type of uh, some type of gathering of some sort, a conspiracy, if you will, because that's what it is, a combination. There's criminal conspiracy that was at foot, and there was planning, there was motive. Let's say they were meeting. That might be one way in which to beat the venue aspect of it or defeat any motion to dismiss, because if they're able to prove that, a la somehow they would have to get the text messages, they would have to subpoena any phone records that show any types of communications. It would be hard to do so. Of course, these individuals, if I believe they did, were complicit. That's my opinion. I don't know it for a fact. It's just my belief that they would have to be able to show that they were complicit. They would have to subpoena emails, and I'm thinking that they probably deleted some of the any type of incriminating information to cover their tracks. I can only still I'm pissed to high heaven that nothing has been done for this young lady, that we don't have any closure as to what truly happened to her, even with what we saw on that video. The video, of course, does not show her dying, but it shows an assault. And everybody has been silent. Thank you, Star, for your contribution. This is Black Media Appreciation Month. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to hear about the murder of your father, Valley Girl. Yeah, trouble doesn't last always. Yes. People do, sometimes people do get their karma, although it may not be as quick as you want or the way that you want. I have the articles that I'm going to put here for you all to read, just so you know what's going on, where I get this information from. I'm putting them in the chat so you all can look at it, but this is a damn shame. But we are not going to let this go lightly, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to continue to blast the White House. We're going to continue to blast the Mexican authorities. We're going to ask that something be done. We're going to continue to fight and push for Shanquella Robinson and her family, because how this is not how justice should be. This is not how justice should be. I'm all for due process. I'm all for respecting our law, respecting our laws, due process, innocence until proven guilty. But to have something like this, especially a young black woman who had her life ahead of her, be snuffed this way, and yet our federal government who sees this, who was someone we relied on, this is, I'm wondering what do all the Bidens, where are all the Biden sexuals? What do they think of their Department of Justice with this announcement? What say you about this? Because this reeks, this stinks to me. This sucks. Big time.
And really, the bigger issue is that without the video, before the video even came out, if you all remember, there
That's
was a
Sue Ann
statement
Robinson.
made
That's
saying
the
no
attorney.
foul play. Before any evidence was even entered, there was a statement made saying, "Oh, there's no foul play." That statement was never retracted, but because the case was never taken seriously from the beginning, that caused the delay. That caused Mexico to have to do their own autopsy, then the FBI to have to wait for the Robinson family to have the body transported. All of these things should have been done by U.S. federal authorities if they took the case seriously from the beginning.
They
But
did.
it wasn't taken seriously from the beginning. The people had to move the case. We had to demand that the case be taken seriously. And those delays are going to cause discrepancies in an investigation. We all watched First 48, know that that time when you're investigating a murder or homicide or any crime, that you have to investigate swiftly. We saw it with the kidnapping case in Mexico. Immediately, the FBI said $50,000 reward. We're moving in. We're coordinating with the Mexican authorities. There was no swift action on this case. There was absolutely no urgency on the part of the U.S. authorities. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I guess what's the discrepancy? Would any discrepancy that they told you are part of like the Mexican autopsy?
Oh, okay, sure. So, yeah, absolutely, because it's going to be revealed. It's going to be the feds are going to release their results of their autopsy, which was done after the body was embalmed and then transported. And they're advising that there isn't a spinal cord injury, that the Mexican
Yeah, Holder was
autopsy says there's a spinal cord injury,
I don't
but
care if
according
Holder
to
was a member of 100 Black Men. Eric Holder went. I remember when they said Eric Holder with Ferguson uh, after the Mike Brown incident. But here's the thing: you sent him. You didn't. Barack Obama didn't go down, but Barack Obama went to Dallas for those police officers that were shot and killed. He did go to the Mother Emanuel 9 eulogy. I remember it. That was a Friday. He went there. That was the same day the Supreme Court ruled in favor of quote unquote same sex marriage, which he commented on the steps of the White House. I distinctly remember that. See, he found the time to speak for other people, but not his own.
them there is no spinal cord injury. They're also advising that there's swelling on Shanquella's brain, but that her cause of death is undetermined. So to me, if you are in an investigation, how are you closing an investigation on a case where the cause of death is undetermined, but we all have seen a video showing a brutal attack? That doesn't, it's not giving undetermined, it's giving there's a video and now you're telling us something else, not to believe our own eyes, which is why I invoked George Floyd's case, which is why I said, that was a case where we were being told, don't believe your own eyes. Don't believe that Derek Chauvin has his knee on his neck for 8 minutes. believe that it's really a heart palpitation or he's having some
It's
sort of.
because Black lives don't truly matter, sister. They have stated this by doing so. They don't believe a crime took place because they didn't take it seriously. They don't care for this. They, what happened. And I want to go back again in closing. Let's not forget in 2020, there was a push by a lot of people, especially sisters, especially from the AKAs, Deltas, and so forth, members of that sorority, that wanted Joe Biden to have a Black woman as a vice president. It would, Black women have been marginalized. Black women have been mistreated, and it would mean so much of symbolism if Joe Biden had a so-called, a quote-unquote, Black female vice president, and he picks Kamala Harris to be the vice president. And Kamala Harris has a history, as we all know. I'm not going to get into that. But, and yes, he picks a Supreme Court justice who's a Black woman. At the end of the day, when we have our Black women, girls who are getting murdered, like we saw, and yes, it was allegedly by the hands of another Black person, another Black female, allegedly. I'm being careful with my words. The FBI could have picked up this case if they wanted to. They didn't. They could have extradited the alleged killers to Mexico if they signed a warrant naming the person. They didn't. They don't take this shit seriously. They don't take you seriously. But come 2024, we're gonna see the posters out. We're gonna hear Swollen Martin. We're gonna hear, Ricky Smiley. We're gonna hear D.L. Hughley, Steve Harvey, all these people trying to get us out to vote them. You're gonna see it on CB. You're gonna see it in the mainstream media. BT's gonna be a part of it. Everybody, all the old Black heads are gonna be part of it. Do not let this fool you. I'm disgusted. You should be disgusted that no charges would be filed in this case. That nothing is happening. That's the thing that disgusts me. If the person got acquitted of it, that meant at least due process had been done. I could partially live with that. I can't live with the fact that nothing is being done. I'm sorry, I can't deal with that. Now, y'all can go ahead and get mad. Some of you can get mad at me if you want to for attacking Uncle Joe or the Department of Justice, really. I forgot to mention, remember, they made that deal with the brother that was shot up in Georgia. Ahmaud Arbery's killers initially, remember, the DOJ was going to get those guys until the family objected. They were doing plea bargaining to keep them out of state prison. And a family objected. Absolutely not. But y'all tell me what y'all think. Please let me know. I'm going to go and get out of here. It's a shame. But justice for Shanquella. We're not going to stop, Queen. Anyway, y'all, I'll be back Thursday. I may be talking more about this with Sean James. In the meantime, I will see you all later. Be one, be safe, be blessed. Love y'all. Peace.